The reluctant ambassador Elian Reeve straightened his collar for the 5th time as the transport shuttle approached the gleaming spires of Nylar Prime. The crystalline towers caught the light of twin suns, refracting it into prismatic patterns that danced across the horizon. Beautiful, yes, but Elian couldn't shake the feeling that he was headed straight into the most elaborate trap of his career. "Ambassador Reeve, we'll be docking in 10 minutes, said Commander Josen, her voice crisp and professional. "The Nylarians are particular about first impressions. Remember your briefing?" Elian nodded, though the briefing had been woefully inadequate. The Nylarians had remained largely enigmatic, despite 3 years of preliminary communications. What little humanity knew suggested they were a species driven by emotion rather than cold logic, with a culture steeped in rituals that somehow connected to their advanced technology. The perfect recipe for misunderstandings. "I'm familiar with the protocols, Commander," he replied, though his stomach knotted with anxiety. At 34, Elian was the youngest ambassador Earth had ever sent on a first contact mission. His appointment had raised eyebrows among the diplomatic corps, but his unprecedented success mediating the Mars colony, disputes had apparently impressed someone important. The shuttle glided into a docking bay that seemed to be made entirely of some translucent material that shifted colors with each passing moment. A welcoming party waited beyond the airlock, tall, slender figures draped in flowing garments that mimicked the iridescent quality of their architecture. Deep breath, Elian muttered to himself before stepping through the airlock. The first thing that struck him was the scent, like jasmine and ozone, unfamiliar, yet not unpleasant. The second was the silence. Despite the dozen or so Nylarians present, the chamber was eerily quiet. Then one figure stepped forward, and Elian's carefully constructed diplomatic facade nearly crumbled. Princess Thalia Nixwing moved like water, fluid and graceful. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, pale blue with delicate patterns that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, contained swirling galaxies of deep violet. But it was her expression that caught him off guard. Open curiosity mingled with barely concealed amusement. "Ambassador Elian Reeve," she said, her voice melodic with an accent that made his name sound like poetry. "I am Thalia, heir apparent to the crystal throne of Nylar. Your journey has been long. Your spirit must be weary." Before Elian could respond with his prepared greeting, she reached forward and placed her palm against his chest, directly over his heart. The touch sent a jolt through him that was decidedly unprofessional. "Your heart beats quickly, Ambassador. Are you afraid of us?" The question held no malice, only genuine curiosity. Elian recovered his composure. "Not afraid, Your Highness, merely adjusting to new customs." A smile bloomed across her face, revealing teeth that seemed to shimmer like opals. "Honesty, refreshing." She withdrew her hand, but the warmth lingered. "Most ambassadors begin with practiced lies about eternal friendship." "I believe friendship must be earned, not declared," Elian replied, surprising himself with his candor. Something shifted in her expression. "Respect, perhaps." "Then we shall see what you earn during your stay, Ambassador." She turned, gesturing toward an archway that opened at her approach. "Come. The elders await, and they are considerably less patient than I." As Elian followed her through corridors that seemed alive with light and color, he couldn't help but notice how other Nylarians regarded their princess, with a mixture of reverence and wariness. Thalia moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to power, but carried herself with an untamed energy that suggested she didn't always follow the rules. "Your world sent 17 messages before choosing you," Thalia said without looking back. "They rejected our invitation 3 times. Why come now?" The question was direct, borderline accusatory. Elian decided to match her honesty, "because we finally realized we can't afford not to," he admitted. "The galaxy is getting smaller. Better to make friends than remain strangers." Thalia stopped so abruptly that Elian nearly collided with her. She turned, studying his face with those unsettling cosmic eyes. "Interesting," she murmured. "They said humans were predictable. You are not what I expected, Elian Reeve." Something in the way she said his name, intimately as if tasting it, sent an inappropriate shiver down his spine. This mission was going to be far more complicated than he'd anticipated. "Likewise, Your Highness," he replied carefully. "I suspect we'll both be revising our expectations." Her smile returned, enigmatic and challenging. "Indeed." And please, when the elders aren't watching, call me Thalia. I have a feeling formality will only hinder whatever is to come. Astral binding, the Grand Council chamber of Nylar hummed with energy that Elian could feel but not see. 7 elders sat in a semicircle, their features more angular than Thalia's, their skin patterns more intricate, suggesting age or status. Elian couldn't be sure. For 3 hours, they had questioned him about Earth's intentions, technologies, and social structures with unnerving precision. Your species values individual achievement over collective harmony, observed Elder Kyanan, the apparent leader whose skin bore constellations of deep indigo. This creates innovation but also conflict. Different paths can lead to similar destinations, Elian replied diplomatically. We've learned from our conflicts. A ripple of something, perhaps approval, passed through the chamber. Throughout the exchange, Thalia had remained silent, observing from a crystalline seat slightly apart from the elders. Her gaze never left Elian, making him increasingly aware of her presence. The hour grows late, Elder Kyanan announced. Tomorrow begins the Festival of Celestial Alignment. Ambassador Reeve will attend as our honored guest. The elder's gaze shifted to Thalia. Princess, as tradition dictates, you will guide our visitor through the sacred rituals. Thalia inclined her head, but Elian caught a flicker of something rebellious in her expression. As the stars will it, Elder. Later, as Thalia led Elian to his quarters, her formal demeanor dissolved. The elders were impressed, though they'd never admit it. You're the first human who hasn't tried to sell them something or demand technology exchanges. Is that why I was chosen as your guide for this festival? Elian asked. Thalia's laughter was like wind chimes. No, that's because I requested it. Most ambassadors are assigned to boring ministerial escorts. She stopped before a door that opened at her approach. These are your quarters, rest well. Tomorrow will challenge everything you think you understand about my people. Should I be concerned? She leaned closer, her scent enveloping him. Starlight and rare flowers. Be exhilarated instead. Few outsiders witness the alignment festival. Fewer still participate. Her fingers brushed his wrist, sending that same electric sensation up his arm. Sleep well, Elian of Earth. The festival began at dawn, the twin suns casting twin shadows that created disorienting patterns across Nylar Prime's central plaza. Thousands of Nylarians gathered, their garments a riot of colors that shifted with their movements. Elian, dressed in a ceremonial robe provided for him, felt conspicuously alien despite attempts to blend in. Thalia appeared beside him without warning, adorned in a gown that seemed woven from the night sky itself, with points of light that twinkled like actual stars. A thin circlet of crystal rested upon her head, marking her royal status. You look... Elian struggled to find an appropriate diplomatic compliment. Confined, Thalia supplied with a wry smile. Royal ceremonial attire is designed to restrict movement and encourage dignified behavior. She leaned closer, whispering, I hate it. Before Elian could respond, drums began to pulse through the crowd, resonating at a frequency that vibrated in his chest. Nylarians began to move in concentric circles, their steps precise and synchronized. What happens now? Elian asked as Thalia took his hand. Now we join the Dance of Worlds, she replied, guiding him into the moving circles. Don't worry about the steps. Feel the rhythm and follow my lead. The dance began simply enough, steps forward and back, turns and sweeping gestures that mimicked celestial orbits. Elian followed Thalia's movements, surprised at how naturally their bodies synchronized. As the drums intensified, so did the dance, participants moving faster, the patterns growing more complex. The alignment approaches, Thalia explained breathlessly as they moved. When the twin suns reach perfect alignment with our sacred moon, we complete the binding ritual. Binding ritual? Elian questioned, but his voice was lost as the music swelled. The dancing circles tightened, forcing participants closer together. Elian found himself pressed against Thalia, her warmth radiating through the thin fabric of their ceremonial garments. The contact sent waves of sensation through him that seemed more intense than could be explained by mere physical proximity. Overhead, the celestial event began, one sun passing before the other, creating a ring of fire in the sky while a small purple moon moved into precise alignment. The crowd's movements reached a crescendo. Now, Thalia breathed, taking both his hands in hers. We complete the circuit. Before Elian could ask what she meant, she pressed her forehead to his. The contact triggered an explosion of light behind his eyes, stars and nebulae swirling galaxies and cosmic dust. He gasped, instinctively trying to pull away, but Thalia held firm. "Don't fight it," she whispered, her voice somehow inside his mind. The soul tether forms only when compatible spirits meet. The sensation was overwhelming. Pleasure and pain, expansion and contraction. Elian felt as though his consciousness had become untethered from his body, merging with something vast and ancient. And through it all, he felt Thalia, her emotions washing over him in waves, excitement, fear, curiosity, and something deeper he couldn't name. When the connection finally broke, Elian staggered backward, disoriented. The festival continued around them, but Thalia's expression had changed to one of shock and wonder. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she murmured, touching her temple where a faint luminescent pattern had appeared, a pattern that Elian somehow knew was mirrored on his own skin. "Not with an outsider. What just happened?" Elian demanded, his diplomatic reserve shattered. Thalia's eyes met his, galaxies swirling in their depths. "We've become soul-tethered, a connection that typically forms only between Nilarians who share a profound spiritual resonance." Her voice lowered. "The elders will not be pleased. Can it be undone?" Something like hurt flashed across her face, and Elian felt it echo within himself, a phantom emotion that wasn't his own. "No, and that reaction confirms you don't understand what's happened." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "We need to leave, now, before the elders realize." Without waiting for his response, she grabbed his hand and pulled him through the crowd, away from the celebration and into the labyrinthine streets of Nylar Prime. Elian followed, acutely aware that something fundamental had changed between them, and perhaps within himself, that diplomatic protocols had never prepared him for. Conspiracy among stars. "You still don't understand what the soul tether means, do you?" Thalia asked as she led Elian through a series of increasingly narrow passages. They had been moving steadily downward, away from the gleaming spires of Upper Nylar Prime, into districts that seemed older, more organic. Elian's diplomatic training urged caution, but a new instinct, one that had emerged since the binding, pushed him to trust her. "Then explain it to me. Preferably before we're discovered missing from a ceremony I'm supposed to be the guest of honor at." Thalia paused before a wall that appeared solid until she pressed her palm against it, revealing a hidden doorway. "The soul tether is rare even among my people. It's a psychic connection that allows emotional resonance between two beings. We'll sense each other's feelings, sometimes thoughts if they're intense enough." She pulled him inside what appeared to be a small sanctuary filled with bioluminescent plants. "It typically happens only between Nilarians who share a profound compatibility. And it happened between us," Elian stated, trying to process the implications. "A human and a Nilarian. Which is precisely why we needed to leave," Thalia said, securing the hidden door. "There are those among the elders, and within my own family, who believe Nilarians should remain separate from other species. A soul tether between us challenges everything they believe about human-Nilarian relations." Elian felt a chill that wasn't entirely his own. "You're afraid?" "Not for myself," she replied, and he knew she was telling the truth. He could feel her concern radiating through their new connection. "For you, and for what this could mean for the treaty. Who would oppose our alliance so strongly?" Thalia's expression darkened. "My cousin, Prince Varen. He leads the purest faction that believes contact with humans will dilute our spiritual connection to the cosmos." She began activating crystal panels embedded in the walls, which projected holographic star charts. "But there's more. I've suspected for some time that Varen has been secretly communicating with elements on your world." Elian stared at her. "Earth extremists? The isolation movement?" "Yes, they share his fear of alien influence, though for different reasons." Her fingers traced patterns in the projection, revealing communication logs. "I believe they're planning to sabotage the treaty signing. That's why you requested to be my guide," Elian realized. "You've been investigating this all along." A smile quirked her lips. "You're quick." "Yes, but I never anticipated the soul tether. It complicates things. Or simplifies them." Elian countered, surprising himself with his acceptance of their situation. "If we can sense each other's intentions, we have an advantage they don't know about." Thalia studied him with new appreciation. "Perhaps but it also makes you a target once they discover what's happened. The mark on your temple, she touched her own, which still glowed faintly, will be visible to my people for several days. Elian took a breath, centering himself. Then we need to move quickly. What's our next step? We need proof of Varen's conspiracy. He maintains a private communication array in his personal quarters in the southern spire. Thalia hesitated. Getting in won't be easy. I'm assuming you have a plan. Her smile turned mischievous. Half a plan. The rest will improvise. They spent hours in Thalia's sanctuary, reviewing palace schematics and security protocols. As night fell over Nylar Prime, they slipped through maintenance tunnels that Thalia had discovered during what she called her rebellious adolescence. Elian found himself adapting to their connection, increasingly able to sense her emotional state. Determination mingled with exhilaration and an undercurrent of something warmer when she looked at him. The southern spire is mostly deserted during night cycle, Thalia whispered as they emerged into a darkened corridor. Varen maintains only minimal security. He trusts technology more than people. A mistake, Elian murmured. One of many, she agreed. They moved silently through corridors lined with art that depicted Nylarian history, conquest, diplomacy, and mysticism intertwined. Elian noted how the most recent works showed Nylarians standing apart from other species, looking down upon them from the stars. Varen's revisionist influence, Thalia explained, following his gaze. He's been reshaping our cultural narrative for decades. They reached a sealed door, emblazoned with Varen's personal sigil, a stylized constellation that Elian recognized from briefing materials as the Nylarian symbol for purity. How do we get past this? He asked. Thalia produced a crystal that pulsed with inner light. Royal override. One advantage of being heir to the throne, though Varen has been trying to challenge my succession rights for years. The door slid open silently, revealing a chamber dominated by advanced communications technology. Screens displayed star charts, transmission logs, and what appeared to be Earth military installations. There, Thalia whispered, pointing to a secure terminal. That would contain his private communications. As they moved toward it, Elian felt a sudden spike of danger through their connection. He grabbed Thalia's arm, pulling her back just as energy beams lanced through the space where she'd been standing. How predictable you've become, cousin, came a smooth voice from the shadows. Prince Varen stepped into view, tall and imposing with skin patterns that glowed deep crimson. Though I admit I didn't expect you to bring your pet human along. 4 guards materialized from concealed positions, weapons trained on them. Varen, Thalia acknowledged coldly. Planning treason against your own people? The prince laughed. Treason? I'm saving our species from contamination. His gaze shifted to Elian, then narrowed as he noticed the faint mark at Elian's temple. Shock registered on his face. Impossible. You've soul-tethered with this creature? Elian felt Thalia's surge of protective anger. He has a name and a rank, Varen. One that deserves your respect. This changes nothing, Varen snarled, though his composure had clearly faltered. In fact, it proves everything I've warned the elders about. Humans are a corruption, capable of infiltrating even our most sacred bonds. Your Earth allies might be interested to know you consider them a corruption, Elian remarked, attempting to provoke a revealing response. Varen's smile turned cruel. My human associates share my vision of separation. They fear alien influence as much as I fear human contamination. Together, we will ensure both our species remain pure by preventing this misguided alliance. How? Thalia demanded. The treaty signing is tomorrow, and it will be disrupted by an unfortunate incident, Varen replied. One that will demonstrate how dangerous human Nylarian cooperation truly is. He gestured to his guards. Take them to the containment cells. After tomorrow's demonstration, we'll determine what to do with a princess who betrayed her bloodline for an alien lover. As the guards approached, Elian felt something unexpected through the soul tether. Not fear from Thalia, but focused concentration. She was planning something. Varen, she said suddenly, her voice taking on a formal cadence that seemed to make the air vibrate. I invoke the right of royal challenge. The guards halted immediately. Varen's expression shifted from triumph to calculation. You would risk everything on ancient combat ritual? For him? Varen questioned. For truth, Thalia countered. Unless you fear facing me without your guards to protect you. Elian sensed the strategy, buying time, forcing Varen's hand. Whatever happened next would determine not only their fate, but the future of human-Nilarian relations. Varen's eyes narrowed. Very well, cousin. Let us settle this as our ancestors did. He dismissed the guards with a gesture. Tomorrow at dawn, before the treaty signing. The sacred arena. If you win, you may present your accusations to the elders. If I win, his gaze slid to Elian. Your human returns to Earth in disgrace, and you renounce your claim to the crystal throne. Through their connection, Elian felt Thalia's determination harden into resolve. Agreed. As the guards escorted them out, not to cells, but to guarded quarters as the challenge ritual apparently demanded, Elian leaned close to Thalia. What just happened? I've bought us time, she whispered, and a chance to expose Varen publicly. At what risk to yourself? Her expression softened, and through their bond flowed a warmth that made Elian's breath catch. Some things are worth risking everything for, Ambassador. Her fingers brushed his, sending that now familiar electric sensation between them. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we fight for both our worlds. Stellar surrendered dawn broke over Nylar Prime with a rare three-shadow alignment. Elian paced his chamber, feeling Thalia's determination flowing through their strengthening bond. When Commander Josen arrived with urgent concerns about diplomatic chaos and rumors of forbidden bonds, Elian admitted the situation was complicated but vital. We've uncovered a conspiracy to sabotage the treaty, he explained. The challenge ritual is our chance to expose Varen publicly. The sacred arena stood in stark contrast to Nylar's modern architecture, ancient stone etched with constellations and spiritual texts. Hundreds of Nylarians filled the tiered seating, their voices creating an anxious murmur. Elder Kyanan noticed Elian's arrival. Ambassador, you've become entangled in matters beyond your understanding. With respect, Elder, Elian replied, touching the soul tether mark at his temple. I understand more than you might think. Trumpets sounded as Thalia and Varen entered from opposite sides of the arena. Both wore combat attire, though Thalia had prominently displayed her soul tether mark rather than hiding it. I accuse Prince Varen of conspiracy against the throne, Thalia announced clearly. He has colluded with Earth extremists to sabotage our alliance. Desperate claims from a princess who has betrayed our traditions by bonding with an alien, Varen countered smoothly. What followed was unlike any combat Elian had witnessed. Their weapons became extensions of consciousness, creating patterns of energy that clashed and sparked. Through their bond, Elian felt Thalia's movements, a fluid combination of physical prowess and spiritual focus that contrasted with Varen's technical but rigid style. She fights like no royal I've ever seen, murmured a young Nylarian diplomat beside Elian. She moves like someone who's studied outsider techniques. The combat intensified until Varen, growing frustrated, overextended himself. Thalia sidestepped gracefully, disarming him and placing her energy staff at his throat. Yield, she commanded. Never. You've corrupted our bloodline by bonding with a human. The soul tether chooses truth, not species, Thalia replied. Now yield or explain the Earth extremist communication codes in your chambers. Shock rippled through the arena. As Elder Kyanan stepped forward, Varen produced a small device from his garment. If I cannot prevent contamination, I will cleanse it, he snarled, activating the detonator. Alarm surged through their bond. The treaty hall is rigged to explode when the delegates gather, Thalia shouted, knowledge flowing between them as they recalled fragments of data from Varen's chambers. Guards rushed forward, but Varen activated a personal shield. Too late. My allies are implementing our contingency plan. The human delegation will never return to Earth. Elian and Thalia's minds merged in crisis, forming a unified strategy. Commander Josen, evacuate the human delegation immediately. Security code Alpha 70. The shield generator for the treaty hall can be reversed to contain an explosion, Thalia instructed the Nylarian guards. They raced toward the treaty hall, finding technicians already working frantically at control panels. The explosive signature is confirmed. Micro-scale devices set to converge and detonate when triggered. We can't disarm them in time, a technician added. Then we contain them, Thalia declared, accessing royal override codes while Elian provided Earth security protocols to synchronize the systems. Their fingers worked in harmony, two different species creating a unified defense. Through their bond flowed determination, focus, and something deeper neither had acknowledged. The shield contained the explosion that would have shattered any hope for alliance. As the emergency subsided, Elian realized he and Thalia were still connected, physically and psychically, their soul tether marks glowing intensely. Elder Kyanan approached slowly. What we have seen today challenges everything we believed about human-Nilarian relations. Perhaps it's time for new beliefs, Thalia suggested. Later, in a quiet alcove overlooking the city, Thalia led Elian away from the chaos. What happens now? He asked, his diplomatic mission having transformed into something personal. Now we have choices to make, she replied softly. The soul tether doesn't force a path. It merely reveals compatibility that already exists. And what path do you see for us? Instead of answering with words, Thalia leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss sent cascades of sensation through their bond, emotional resonance that transcended species differences. That path, she whispered against his lips, if you're willing to explore it with me. As Elian pulled Thalia close for another kiss, he realized some connections reached beyond duty to touch something universal, a truth that perhaps their two worlds needed to learn. Cosmic Union 1 month after Varen's failed plot, the Grand Treaty Hall had been restored and expanded. Crystalline architecture now incorporated elements of Earth design, an architectural metaphor for the unprecedented integration their worlds were beginning to explore. Delegates from both planets filled the chamber, their voices creating a harmony of human and Nilarian tones that no longer seemed discordant to Elian's ears. From a preparation chamber, he adjusted his formal attire, a hybrid design that honored both cultures. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of diplomatic negotiations, security protocols, and cultural exchanges. Earth's extremist collaborators had been identified and detained, though the ideology of isolation remained a concern on both worlds. Through it all, his connection with Thalia had deepened. The soul tether had matured from its initial intensity into something more nuanced, a constant awareness that could be brought to the foreground, or allowed to rest comfortably at the edges of consciousness. They had learned to balance their bond with their respective duties, though those lines were increasingly blurring. Nervous? Came Thalia's voice as she entered the chamber. She wore ceremonial robes that combined the flowing elegance of Nilarian design with practical elements inspired by Earth fashion. The mark at her temple, now a permanent feature they both carried, glowed softly in response to his proximity. Cautiously optimistic, Elian replied, feeling her amusement at his diplomatic answer ripple through their connection. This treaty goes beyond anything we imagined when I arrived. The elders are still adjusting to the concept of integrated development rather than mere alliance, Thalia acknowledged. But the evidence of compatibility is difficult to deny. Her eyes met his, galaxies swirling in their depths. In more ways than one. The past month had brought challenges beyond diplomacy. Their relationship had become a symbol, embraced by progressives on both worlds, condemned by traditionalists. Elder Kyanan had surprised everyone by becoming their strongest advocate, arguing that the soul tether represented cosmic endorsement of closer human-Nilarian relations. Commander Josen thinks we're moving too quickly, Elian admitted, sharing a concern he'd been reluctant to voice. She believes some of the technology exchanges should be delayed until we better understand each other's cultures. She's not entirely wrong, Thalia said thoughtfully. Rapid change brings risks, but separate development has reached its limits for both our species. The challenges we face, spatial anomalies, resource depletion, the void drift affecting both our territories, require unified approaches. Their conversation paused as an attendant entered, bowing respectfully. Princess Ambassador, the ceremony awaits. They entered the treaty hall together, side by side rather than in the hierarchical procession tradition would have dictated. A murmur rippled through the gathered delegates, not disapproval but acknowledgement of the symbolic statement their entrance made. Elder Kyanan presided from a central podium, flanked by Earth's Secretary General. The treaty document rested between them, its physical form combining traditional Nilarian crystal data storage with Earth's preference for tangible records. Today marks not merely an alliance between worlds but a recognition of shared destiny, Elder Kyanan began, his voice carrying the formal cadence of Nilarian ceremony. What began as cautious diplomatic exchange has revealed deeper possibilities for integration and mutual growth. The Secretary General continued. We come from different stars, but face common challenges. This treaty establishes frameworks for technological exchange, cultural understanding, and unified security that honor our differences while building upon our complementary strengths. As the ceremony progressed, Elian felt a private surge of emotion from Thalia through their bond, not just satisfaction at their diplomatic achievement, but something more personal. Her fingers brushed his briefly, sending images rather than words, the two of them moving between worlds, building something neither species had envisioned alone. When the time came for representatives to formally endorse the treaty, Elian and Thalia stepped forward together. This had been the most controversial aspect of the ceremony's planning, acknowledging their unique position as both diplomatic representatives and living symbols of human-Nilarian connection. Ambassador Elian Reeve, you speak for Earth in this matter, the Secretary General stated formally. Princess Thalia Nixwing, you speak for Nylar, Elder Kyanan added. They placed their hands simultaneously upon the treaty crystal, which illuminated in response to their touch. Through their bond flowed a shared commitment that transcended their individual loyalties without diminishing them. Earth embraces this new chapter of cooperation, Elian stated, the formal words carrying the weight of months of negotiation. Nylar welcomes this cosmic convergence of paths, Thalia responded, her voice harmonizing with his in a way that made the crystal resonate sympathetically. The treaty crystal pulsed with light that spread through conduits in the floor and walls, symbolically connecting everyone present. Applause erupted, a human custom that Nilarians had adopted with their own variation, creating melodic tones that accompanied the sound. Hours later, after receptions and formal discussions had concluded, Elian and Thalia escaped to her private sanctuary where they had hidden during the crisis. The bioluminescent plants had grown, responding to the energy of their bond whenever they visited. It's really happening, Elian said quietly as they watched Nylar Prime's nightscape through a crystal viewport. A year ago, our peoples barely acknowledged each other's existence. Thalia moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her cheek resting against his shoulder. Through their connection flowed contentment, mingled with excited anticipation. The elders have approved my proposal, she said. I'll be Nylar's first ambassador to Earth, reciprocating your position here. Elian turned to face her. That's wonderful. But what about your royal duties? Evolution of traditions, she replied with the mischievous smile he'd come to love. My generation will redefine what it means to be royal. Leadership through connection rather than isolation. Her expression softened. Besides, I have personal reasons for wanting to experience your world. The soul tether between them hummed with shared emotion as he drew her closer. Their kiss deepened, carrying the familiar electric sensation that never diminished. As diplomatic restraint gave way to personal passion, Elian felt their connection open fully, creating a feedback loop of desire and tenderness. Later, as they lay entwined amid bioluminescent glow, Thalia traced patterns on his chest that matched the constellations visible through the viewport. The ancient texts speak of cosmic unions that transcend physical form, she murmured. I always thought they were spiritual metaphors, not predictions. Perhaps they were both, Elian suggested, fingers gently exploring the patterns on her skin that shifted with her emotions. The boundary between science and spirituality seems particularly thin on Nylar. She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face with those galaxy-filled eyes. Does it bother you, the spiritual aspects of our connection? Elian considered this. His diplomatic training had emphasized rational analysis and objective distance. Yet his experiences on Nylar, and especially with Thalia, had revealed limitations in that approach. I've learned that understanding doesn't always require explanation, he said finally. Whatever scientific principles underlie the soul tether, they don't diminish what we feel. Satisfaction and relief flowed through their bond. Thalia settled against him, her body fitting perfectly against his despite the subtle differences in their physiologies. Tomorrow we begin implementing the practical aspects of the treaty, she said. Cultural exchange programs, scientific collaborations, security protocols. The work of generations condensed into months, Elian agreed. Worth it, though, Thalia murmured sleepily. for all the future soul tethers that might form. As she drifted to sleep in his arms, Elian gazed out at the stars visible through the viewport. Somewhere out there was Earth, no longer just his home, but part of an expanded identity that now embraced two worlds. The diplomatic mission he'd reluctantly accepted had transformed not just two civilizations, but himself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many as their worlds navigated this unprecedented integration, they would face them together, their bond a living testament to possibilities that transcended the boundaries of worlds and species. Outside, the twin suns began their ascent, casting dual shadows that no longer seemed disorienting but rather a natural representation of dual perspectives, merging into shared understanding. A new day was dawning, not just for Elian and Thalia, but for all who dared to reach beyond familiar stars to discover connections waiting in the cosmos.